You know, we're here.
He's looking at something.
I don't know.
Trying to, we need to ask you, if he's having fun.
I was wondering when I have that on, do you notice my Dick the Bruiser poster in the background?
Are you making? I can't say that I did.
All right, maybe I make it put him up over my shoulder a little more. Dick, and then I think it was Spike Gelhausen was his.
Good
sidekick.
evening and welcome to the November meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for Zionsville. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll invite the audience to join us.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is attendance. I'd ask that that be taken. Janice, will that be you or will that be?
That will be actually our new director, Mike Dale.
Okay, Mike, would you take attendance, please?
Mr. Mundy,
Present?
Mr. Lake,
Present.
Mr. Pickell,
Present.
Ms. Postlewaite,
Present.
Mr. Jones.
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 5th minutes of the meeting that was included in your package. Are there any questions or corrections to be made? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pickell. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. They are approved. Thank you. Next item is election of a Board of Zoning Appeals secretary. That you may recall that Janice has done that for 2 meetings now. And we now have a new director, Michael Day, who was introduced last meeting. And I'd like to ask for a nomination of Michael Day to replace Mrs. Stavanovich as the secretary.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mike, thank you and welcome as the secretary.
Thank you very much.
Into our agenda, we do have one request for withdrawal. Docket number 2022-58-DSV, Hoosier Storage of Zionsville at 7330 South Indianapolis Road, Whitestown, Indiana. Petitioner has requested a withdrawal of the petition. They've done this and it is so mentioned on the agenda, so we don't need a motion. It is just for information only. That petition has been withdrawn. If anyone is here who came to hear that or speak to that petition, it has been withdrawn. Next item on the docket is,
Mr. Monday, I think. it was
yes,
Ann.
I'm sorry. If you would give us your name and address first, please.
How you doing? John Kozlowski, 7395 Doyle Drive, Whitestown, Indiana. So my house is directly behind that lot. So it was great news to hear that the petition was withdrawn. Just wondering if anyone had any further information on possible plans of this builder to submit a new petition in the coming months or year. Or
I think I can only tell you that we have a very brief letter, which we've received word from the owners of the proposed project, Hoosier Storage LLC, that they have decided to terminate the project. So we need to withdraw the petition.
Okay.
Is there any more information that can be shared?
That's all that we have.
And then, and is there any, what are processes of potentially rezoning or trying to get a piece of land like that rezoned, or specifically, because for example, where we are, this neighborhood in Westwood Landing, it's right behind, 3 or 4 houses directly behind. And then a lot of neighbors that we spoke to were opposed to the idea of just having something like a big storage unit right there by our, where they walk every day. So is there any process or of getting a community together or certain city people to see if there's a chance for that?
I'm afraid you're asking the wrong group that question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with this, and I intend to look a little further into it. I just was curious. Really.
I would suggest you give our office a call tomorrow. If it's your first opportunity, we'd be happy to
Okay.
talk to you more about that.
Yeah, because I mean, we're like, it's right outside our door. I got little boys playing in the yard, and obviously, I get business is business, but yeah, and so I'll do that. And then last question, thank you for your time. I heard even the address as 7335 or Indianapolis Drive, Whitestown, Indiana. Is there a reason why?
7330 South
733
Indianapolis Road.
Indianapolis Road, Whitestown, Indiana. Is there a reason why Zionsville, if it's a Whitestown address, why the hearings are taking place here in Zionsville?
Well, yeah, postal code zones are not necessarily the same as the municipality. We
Okay.
have Carmel addresses in Zionsville.
Hmm.
We have Whitestown addresses in Zionsville. We have Lebanon addresses in Zionsville. So these are all places within Zionsville, but their postal address is different.
Is okay, and
Yeah.
that's where, okay. Right on, spot on. Well, I appreciate you guys, everyone's time. Thank you very much.
Give us a call. Thank you.
Yes, we'll do. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. The next item is docket 2022-56-DSV. S. Torgerson at 325 South 3rd Street, Zionsville. It's a petition for a development standard variance to provide for an enclosed porch addition which exceeds the allowable lot coverage in the urban village residential zoning district, RV. Is Mrs. Torgerson here? If you would come to the microphone, please. From the back of the room, if there are individuals who are in virtual right now, would you let me know that? And if any of them wish to speak on any of these petitions, I'd like to know that as well. Do we have any in there now? Other than Mr. Lake? Okay. All right. And Mr. Torgerson, before you start, one other piece of business. We do have one of the petitions which used regular first class mail to give notice. Our rules do require they used registered mail, but due to the pandemic, we have allowed the use of first class mail so that people didn't have to sign for something at the post office or at their door. And so I'd entertain a motion to exempt the requirement of using registered mail for the notices given.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postawait. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I'm sorry, keep you, Mrs. Torgerson. If you would give us your name, address, and what you would like to do at your home.
My name is Sally, legally named as Sarah Torgerson, and I live at 325 South 3rd Street in the village of Zionsville. I moved in 3 months ago and moved here from California. And what I'd like to do is put in a 3-season enclosed porch, not heated, not insulated, no underneath it, so I can enjoy the beautiful view of my trees year round. I have cancer and I can't be out in the sun, so I can't even enjoy the patio as it is. So then that's what I'd like to do. And I've sent everything to, everybody's gotten everything they were supposed to. It's sitting, it is being built on top of an existing concrete patio, but only taking a little bit of it, so. It's no new ground coverage.
And the reason for the request for a variance is that you your lot coverage will change.
Yeah, yes, but I still don't, I'm applying, but I still don't understand how the lot coverage changes when the patio is sitting on top of a concrete patio. That's already covering.
Okay. I'm sure that the staff report will inform
I-
you
I-
and everyone else of what changes when that happens. Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No, but I really bought the house so I could build a patio. A porch.
All
I
right.
can't watch the rain in California, so I wanted to watch the rain.
You may get tired of it.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner?
I have pictures if anybody hasn't seen them.
Seeing no questions, do we have any remonstrators who wish to speak for or against this petition? Seeing none, could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, as the petitioner stated, she's wanting to do an enclosed 3-season room over an existing pervious pavers. Her current lot coverage is compliant, just under the 37%. So in the village, as I think most of you know, we allow for 35% lot coverage and then a 2% bonus for pervious surfaces. When the pavers get covered by a patio that's no longer impervious, so then it gets bumped back down to the 35% maximum lot coverage. So that's the reason for the request, even though the lot coverage really isn't changing, it's just now required to meet the 35% since it's no longer pervious. With that said, in the minimal request, staff is in favor of the request and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Do you now understand? Okay,
I'd never heard them talking about pervious versus impervious
okay.
stone.
No questions for staff? Anyone online wish to speak? Nope. All right, given no questions, is there a motion on this petition?
You have it up.
I do. I move that docket number 2022-56-DSD Development Standards Variance to provide for an increase of lot coverage up to 36.9% for the construction of an enclosed porch for the property located at 325 South 3rd Street in the Urban Residential Village Zoning District, RV, be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and substantial compliance with the submitted site plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Postawait. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Paquel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good luck with enjoying the rain
Thank you.
and your covered patio now.
Thank you. And I promise I'll make it look just like that.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is docket number 2022-57-DSV. M. Godbett, 10703 Barrington Way, Zionsville, Indiana. Petition for a development standard variance to decrease the rear setback to provide for a swimming pool in the Holiday Farms Plan Unit development. Mr. Godbett here, is that you?
This is my wife, Sandra.
The
This is
wife?
my wife, Sandra.
Andrew?
So first, thank you for taking the time to hear this tonight. We are coming to talk to you about decreasing the setback in the backyard. We specifically purchased this lot to put a pool in. And in fact, in our building agreement with Sigma, we have a line item with a budget inside the contract for a pool. So that being said, we've been planning this for quite a while. We've met with Permapools for close to a year on this, taking a look at it, how we're going to set it up on the lot. When finally we broke ground after several delays in late November last year, the pool was pushed back a little bit, but so we talked through it, worked with Perma Pools. They came to the city of Zionsville, received a building permit to put the pool in. Upon doing that, they started to build the pool. We got a little ways into it, and we had some people objecting to the pool because of the setback. So I submitted the pool and all the landscaping plan to the HOA or the ARB, anticipating that the pool was fine, that we just need to get the landscaping signed off on around the pool. Part of the reason why I bought the lot, it is on the golf course, but we have a significant amount of space behind us, that probably 50 yards between the back of our lot to the number 2 tee box. So there's a lot of green space behind there. So, again, upon receiving the building permit from the town, from the city, these guys had started the pool, and then, so then we come to find out we need to come and apply for the variance. We're about 16 feet from the back of the lot, so we're about 9 feet into the setback. So we're looking for the variance for those 9 feet, essentially. We understand that the mistake happened with the city on the building permit, but we've moved forward with this. We weren't trying to be malicious. We've been working on this for 2 years, and weren't trying to sneak something in on someone. And we feel like we're kind of left holding the bag right now. And we feel like a variance would help us get this project done. The pool is pretty much in. It's about 85% done. So we're just hoping the variance will help us continue that project and get it finished up.
So I have a procedural question. If the Architectural Review Board hasn't approved your project, it doesn't matter what we say. You still can't have a pool.
We were never given any covenants by the builder, by the ARB. So that to us wasn't even on our minds. When they received the building permit from the city, we thought this thing is approved and we're good to go with it. And all we had to do from a variant, from a ARB standpoint, was get the landscaping signed off on to provide.
Yeah, that's ultimately not my question, though. I mean, ultimately, if we approve the variance, you still can't do this if they don't approve it. They have to approve it. They're the approval body, not us.
But isn't that a separate question? If we're here for the variance for the zoning, then that is another issue that is something we need to discuss with the ARB at Holiday Farms.
Correct. That's a separate issue. So we're looking for the variance for you guys, and then we'll worry about that.
Well, no, it's not a separate issue. It's fairly standard in any current developed subdivision that there's a homeowners association or a architectural review board, and anything of this scale down to a swing set requires the approval of the architectural review board before it moves forward. Without it, and what Chris is bringing up, there's no reason that this should be in front of us until you have the approval of the architectural review board. Now, whether or not you got the covenants when you purchased a lot, once again, that's not our concern. That's a concern you should take up with the developer or maybe the title company or anyone else involved in providing the documents that are attached and run with your property. So until that's resolved, this really is not an issue for us to.
So how do we get around the fact that you guys gave Permapools a permit to build? Zionsville presented them and gave them approval to build. There's a permit stuck on the front door of our house.
Well, once
saying
again,
it's a permit to build. You guys.
That goes back to an issue where for us to approve something, we need to have correct information. And it appears that was not provided.
But why did you approve it?
Well, once again, it is your responsibility to provide the correct information. If we have now gone back and later and found you did not provide the full documentation, it's not our mistake.
Why did you grant the building permit?
Once again,
If you didn't have all the information, We thought you had all the information. These guys provided you the plot plan. They had the drawing. They showed they gave you all that. And then you guys provided the permit to build, which they did. And now we're stuck in the middle of this
Based
thing.
on incorrect information.
Okay, again, that's not our fault. That is a situation.
It kind of
where-
is your fault.
Well, it's your builder's fault. Your builder's responsibility is to understand what the setbacks are and to not build within the setbacks. And if he doesn't have that information, it's his responsibility to go to the development and get that information. So your issue is really with your builder, not with the town of Zionsville.
So where are
And
the
ultimately, I
setbacks?
would also say your responsibility, because as a person who has purchased a lot in that area, I think it's contingent upon you to be able to understand what the rules and regulations are that surround that. And you can understand why your neighbors would be unhappy if you are bending the rules, so to speak, in order to meet your own needs, when in fact they've signed on to the covenants as they are written.
We're
So
not,
where are those rules located?
Well, you should have gotten a copy of the covenants for the Holiday
didn't.
Farms area.
we didn't.
Well,
So, and we're not trying to bend the rules here. We thought we were going through the correct process with these guys receiving the building permit from Zionsville. We thought everything was good. We're going to submit the landscaping plan to the ARB for that with the Zionsville signing off on the building permit.
So if your pool is within your contract with your builder, as budgeted, as you explained, and your builder is building in that neighborhood, it is your builder's responsibility, as he is generating or his subconsultant is generating the site plan, to understand the setbacks. So he missed that there's a setback and put your pool structure in the setback, and that is is legally his responsibility. Now, obviously, the title company should have provided those covenants, as would have the neighborhood when you purchased your lot. That's standard practice. So a bunch of other people missed this prior to it even getting to us. And even if we approve the variance, you still can't build it if your architectural review board does not approve it.
Right.
And
but
so-
then, like,
I understand that. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to understand where the rules are for that, like, for the setbacks. If
Good.
you're saying that they're in the covenants, I guess I would like to see where those are,
The-
so that
there-
we know what they are.
And
There
that's
is
not
no
our
there's
responsibility to
no-
provide those.
Right, but you're
There-
saying that we need
a
to
document they
have the
received
approval from the
from the courts,
ARB that you
or
have
they
nothing
should
to
have.
do with that, but we're asking for a variance, but you're saying you can't do that.
But I think there are some good points made here, and we believe that you need to know that even though if we were to approve this, you still don't have permission to build that pool.
Correct.
Now, the developer should have provided that in some form or fashion, either them directly or, and that's not our responsibility. We don't know what all of those covenants and restrictions might cover either. So, but I also believe that for this board, I think part of the reason behind the staff's desire to have this come through the BZA at this point was that the town did make the approval of the permit to begin with, and that was done in error without knowledge that the 25-foot setback was required, because that typically for the town, when they are looking at setbacks, an accessory like a pool would not be the same as a structure. And so it was an innocent mistake on the town's part. So I believe that that's part of the reason for allowing this to come to the BZA at this time. So it sounds as though you're fully aware that if we were to approve this, it does not assure you that you'll have the ARB's approval to continue. That's a separate matter. We have nothing to do with that.
That is correct.
So I think just from this board standpoint, I think that's part of the rationale that went into why are we seeing it tonight.
Well,
Can I ask our attorney's position on this?
Right.
And our exposure if we approve something like this that doesn't meet their covenants?
Yep, I think the timing of this is a little different, but this isn't really a new issue to us. We see variances come in fairly frequently where the petitioner would then have to go get approval of the HOA to proceed, knowing that our approval really doesn't get them there. like I said, the timing's a little different because they've already started this project. But you're absolutely right that our approval is only gets them halfway there. If they don't get the homeowners or the ARB's approval, they can't proceed with the project. We sometimes have issues come up, I guess, where we have a little bit of a question, should they come to the BZA first or to the Plan Commission first? Similar issue here. They need both approvals. Here it just happens to be the HOA and not the Plan Commission, I suppose. They've submitted a request. They filed their petition. It is a valid petition. I think the board needs to take action on it. My recommendation would be to treat it just as you would any other. It's a request for a setback variance from the standards of that development. Whether they have or ever get the homeowners association approval isn't extremely relevant to us. It's very important to them, but not so much to us in deciding the variance.
The other piece I'd like to point out, there seems to be a lot of discussion as to where do you find this information. If you look at the plot plan supplied with the house and the pool, and if you read down to the bottom, dead center in the middle, it says zone subsection E, zoning, 8-foot minimum to 20-foot separate side, 25-foot rear. So the information is actually clearly on the drawing. The problem is it is not then actually applied to the drawing, but still it's, once again, you know, this is a drawing and a detail that should have been approved by the Architectural Review Board before it even gets to us. That's the way every neighborhood's set up. That's the way the covenants are set up. That's the way, and if they're not familiar with the process and their builder isn't familiar with the process and the pool builder isn't familiar with the process, there's a whole lot of people failing here before it gets to us. And because everyone else has failed is not a reason to grant a variance or even particularly hear it. My first motion would be is that we continue it until they get approval of their Architectural Review Board and work it out with Holiday Farms. It should not be on our docket.
Any other questions, comments, discussion among board? I would suggest that we hear the staff report and understand the staff's position before we get to a motion. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? Yes, sir. If you would come, Mr. Gamba, if you would, you could take a seat and we'll allow others to input for us. Could you give us your name and address, please?
Well, thank you. Obviously, thank you to each of you. This is Mark Koski, 3649 Dartmoor Way in Zionsville, Holiday Farms. Thanks to each of you for your good work, obviously part of this commission. To me, it seems pretty cut and dry. Comes down to this. The town of Zionsville obviously signed off, approved the building of the pool. Step one, that was already mentioned. Family went ahead, put a lot of money into this pool, had it done. If there's a change to that, that's on the town. We as the people of Zionsville trust you all to make the right decisions. You do it all the time. So thank you. We're in the process of looking for a pool now ourselves. So if all of a sudden we put something through and you all approve it, we start the process, and then 6 months later, we've got to come back here and justify the process. I don't think that's right, in my opinion. I mean, it comes down to this group here. We elected you all. We approve. We thank you for what you do. We need you all to act on our behalf because this is what you all do. You know, this is a great thing that you all do as a service, and we appreciate that. So we lean upon you all. We don't know this world. You all do. With that said, I think this is a cut and dry one. Holiday Farms, hey, we can go back to the developer all day long. There's all kinds of issues there. I mean, there are fences in Holiday Farms that have been approved for some people. A lot of people are not being approved. There's so many back and forth with the Hinkie Development Group that I've got questions on. I think we all do. They approve things, they don't approve things based upon the dollar that they ultimately receive. And that's a problem, in my opinion. And that has really concerned me. But again, we lean upon you as the leaders. You have granted this, it should be granted. Thank you, sir.
Could I get some background? Are you with Are you here as an individual who lives in Holiday Farms
Correct.
and?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I saw this on the docket. My wife and I are in the process of looking at a pool. And it concerns me that if they've go through this process, why do we want to put money into a pool that ultimately might not happen?
So are you aware that there is a architectural review board and there's certain covenants that run with your property?
Correct, but I'm also aware
Are
that,
you aware of
you
it?
all as leaders.
No.
No.
Are you aware of what's involved with the property you own?
Here's the thing, if we want to get into the Hinkie Development Group, I'm really happy to do
I'm
that.
talking about the property you own.
Okay.
Are you aware there's an architectural review board and that there's covenants tied to your property?
Our builder should lead us through that
Are
process.
you?
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No, I'm not. I lean
So
upon
when
you
you
as
bought the
leaders.
property and they handed these documents over, you
I would
didn't
think
give them
that
any mind.
the town of
The
Zionsville,
town isn't involved in the closing of your property and the purchase and how you spend your money and how you spend your time and the amount of due diligence you do prior to doing that. My question is, did you do any due diligence on your lot that you purchased?
I lean upon the town to
No.
make the approval. You
It's
all
not-
approve things and we go
right.
with it from there.
The final thing I want to bring up is that on July 26th, it appears that Phil Sunderling of Henke Development was sending notes back to Mr. Godbout, telling him that the pool's encroaching in the rear building setback line. But if I'm hearing correctly, the Godabouts proceeded to dig that pool after receiving this information. I guess I need to ask
Yeah, no, that's-
wherever this guy, if that is that a correct statement? Is the email train in here correct? Please, to the mic.
Phil and I were, Phil Sudley and I, again, this all occurred after the permit was
Once
granted.
again, the direct question
The
is
email
the
was-
email
emails went
chain
back
that
and
we are
forth.
seeing correct?
I'm answering your question before I
Okay.
answer your question. So the emails went back and forth and I sent Phil, again, we thought that this thing was approved from you guys. So at that point, I sent Phil the landscaping plan from Frici Landscaping for the landscape around the pool. He came back and said, this doesn't look, it looks like you're 30 and then into the setback. And I'm thinking, well, we got 16 feet back there. It never crossed my mind that 30 feet was even in the remote discussion. I was thinking 2.5 feet, 30 inches. I was not even thinking 30 feet. So I was thinking we got 16 feet behind the pool. We're in good shape. And these guys, Daniel and I talked, like we put 20 pools in here. We've never had this issue. This is fine. This is fine. I said, okay. And so we relied on that and we moved forward. So
You were given notice prior to sticking a shovel in the ground that there was some concern about where this pool was located.
no, the shovel was already in the ground.
I said you pulled the permit on the 18th of July.
I didn't pull the permit. I didn't apply the permit. These guys did. Yeah. I did not apply for the permit. Permit pools applied for the permit.
So just one comment about relying on the town folks. And we understand that this is not something that is in everybody's lexicon. But we also believe that the homeowners have a responsibility themselves to know on their property what the rules and restrictions and the ordinances are for that property. And it's not up to us to do the research on your property to tell you whether you're going afoul of those ordinances or not. It is your responsibility to know what the covenants are for the area in which you're living, and also what the process is that you have to go through, first of all, in your HOA before you present something to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance if it's needed. That's not on us to be the arbiter of that. That's on the individual who is responsible for the property that they own. So
why wouldn't you do your due diligence?
I'll ask you to come to that microphone if you're going to.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate that and how you handle that. But why wouldn't you all, as the leaders, I mean, if you approve something, then we, upon the townspeople, believe in you all and what you do. So if you approve something, then we believe that. I mean, have a hard time believing anything Hinkie comes out with, let's be honest. So we believe you all, you did your diligence, you approved it, and then this family went for it. That's where I'm struggling.
Obviously, this body didn't approve what you're talking about. This is not the body.
But the town did,
that
right?
approved it.
Right, I understand.
So, and to be clear, I mean, that was done by staff, which my understanding is didn't have the full information on the document that was given to them.
Thank you. So why is it this family's fault that the city didn't, or the town didn't have the information?
Because you are responsible for yourselves. That's what.
The town does not have all of the covenants and restrictions that cover the dozens of developments within the town. That is not what makes up the ordinance that the town uses. Those are yours as a homeowner in that development. That is not what this board uses.
Okay.
I just want to kind of bring back the conversation of why we're here and focus on where our ask is to have the variance for the zoning. What we are to be discussing with the ARB and work that out, that is part 2 of this. But tonight, our ask is to have the variance for the zoning from the town.
Thank you. I think,
understand.
so I think we understand that. And I think we have now mixed the presentation with the
Yes.
remonstration. We have another remonstrator who is here. I'd like to have him be able to speak as well. Yes, sir. If you would state your name, please, and your address.
Yes, it's Brad Weber. I live at 10683 Barrington Way, Holiday Farms. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. And I'll be honest, I didn't want to be here tonight. And unfortunately, I did not want to start my relationship with my 2 future neighbors, Matt and Sandra, this way, because I am one of their neighbors that backs up to their house. I'm also disappointed to say that although I reached out to Hinkie, they declined to send a representative tonight. I also reached out to their attorney, Dan Coates, and they declined to attend tonight, rather just sending emails. So I felt no choice that I need to speak up myself. When my wife and I chose E27, and to give some background, that's the lot directly west to Matt's lot. We selected that based on the location and the view of the first and the second hole. And these homestead lots were carefully designed to maximize the view of the golf course. And I would argue that by violating the setback, it does have a negative effect on our property values, especially when you add in the fact that there will be landscaping around a pool. It will obstruct our view. And that's why also the neighbors on the other side of their lot, Ruth and John 20, also oppose this variance. And you should see in your packet a letter that I forwarded to you to that fact. They were unable to be here tonight because they're out in the country on vacation. Speaking to the covenants and the restrictions, I do think they are clear. And I can't say what was discussed with their builder, although interestingly, we had the same builder. We had Sigma Builders. Our situation was we also considered placing a pool. It was obvious to us that the setback was 25 feet. If we placed a pool, it'd be very close to the back of our house. We opted not to. Now, our arrangement, again, sounds different than theirs. Our arrangement with Sigma was to build a house. A pool would be a separate project. And I'm not saying that Matt and his wife Sandra can't have a pool. They're the homeowners. They own the house, the property. And there is room to put a pool back there. We're simply saying you need to abide by the rules of the Architectural Review Board. And ultimately, it is the homeowner's responsibility to know those rules. Now, this case, this controversy, never should have gone this far. And I'll agree with the comment by the representative in the back. But there were 2 critical problems with this. And the first starts with the building permit by the city of Zionsville. It never should have been approved. This was an incomplete application. On the application specifically, there was no rear setback line or number put in, and it's 25 feet. Secondly, if you go back to the initial PUD ordinance, section 20, controlling developers' consent, and I'll quote, "No developer, user, owner, or tenant may obtain any permits without the written consent of the controlling developer," which is still Hinkie. There was never any written approval. I also enclosed that chain of emails that go on between Phil Sunling and Matt, that going back as early as, to summarize, July 26th, pool is not approved. August 11th, pool is not approved. August 23rd, pool is not approved. August 31st, pool is not approved. September 5th, pool is not approved. So clearly, Matt and Perma Pools knew this pool was not approved, but they rushed it through. They continued construction. Finally, around September 9th, and I'm not sure on that exact date because I was out of town, Hinkie actually sat down in person and informed them, you need to cease construction now that it's 85% done because the pool was never approved. I also find it somewhat interesting with their variance, they're asking for 16 feet. Again, we're talking the pool should be 25 feet from the back of their property. They're asking for 16 feet. Now, I've not taken any measurements. I haven't gone in their yard, but Hinkie took measurements and told us they'll approve the pool, but it has to be moved back 12.5 feet, not 9 feet, 12.5 feet. So even their variance of 16 feet doesn't even make them whole on this subject. And the reason for that, if you look at the plot, their land is not a perfect rectangle. It slopes in on the east side. So the west side of their yard is 146 feet. The east side is 141 feet, which means that the corner, the southeast corner of their pool is only 12.5 feet from the border of their yard. So it's not even 16 feet. Again, it gets back to, you can put the pool in, can't be 9.5 feet or 16 feet or 12.5 feet. It needs to be 25 feet from the back. Finally, upon reviewing the materials for this petition, my wife and I discovered that Perma Pools made notice to public hearing via certified mail. What's even more interesting is that the certified letter to us came to our old address in Carmel, an address we haven't lived at in over 15 months. I've spoken to Matt. My wife has specifically spoken to Dan Majestic, the representative for Perma Pools, so they know we're their neighbors. We live in Zionsville next to them. But yet our certified letter went to an old address in a house that we haven't lived in 15 months, which I feel is somewhat suspicious activity. But in conclusion, I would just respectfully ask that the board deny the petition for the variance, because this variance is opposed by my wife and I. It's opposed by the other neighbors, Ruth and John 20 on the other side of them, and it is opposed by Hinkie Development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Is there any questions for Mr. Weber? I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The covenants and restrictions, were those provided to you when you purchased your lot? Or how did you get them, and what's the process?
So, be very honest and forthcoming. When we bought our lot, we bought it. And when we purchased the lot, that information was given to us directly from Hinkie. And it was very clear. In fairness to them, I don't know if they were given that. I don't know if the builder didn't provide that, but it was provided us when we bought the lot through the lottery. And like I said, we very seriously looked at putting a pool in too, but the variance was very clear. It's on all the plots, 25-foot setback, category section E homes. We didn't think a pool would fit in our yard.
All right, thank you. The second question is, did the Hinkies give you a reason why they would not have a representative here, since they have, I mean, they've shown through at least email and perhaps otherwise that the ARB has not approved this. But I thought
Did not
maybe
give
they
me a
would
reason. I've spoken with Phil Sudling and also Brad Hinkie. They said at this point, in this controversy, they've turned it over to their lawyers. Dan Coates, when I contacted him, he said that he has sent an official email to you, which is enclosed in your packet, and he would not be present.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Weber. Is there anyone else? Yes. You wish to speak up to this petition as well?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Your
My
name
is-
and address first, please.
Sure, my name is Dan Majestic. I own permapools.
Okay.
So a couple things. I asked my son, he does all our permitting. And regarding y'all's address as to how those things actually come about, we actually reach out to Boone County. They provide us actually the addresses. We actually don't, we apologize if you didn't get the mailing. You should probably go and look in Boone County. They would actually have your old address. So that's actually how, it wasn't our intent actually of not including people in the process. So, and I want to, my eyes are getting bad.
Jones,
Young lady back here.
post
Thank you.
away.
That's the nicest thing anybody has said to me in a long time.
I guess what I would tell you is that I know when you were saying, because we build this year we'll do about 175 or 180 pools here in the, I'll say Indianapolis area, probably maybe 25 or 30 pools here within the Zionsville market. I guess what I would tell you is that most of the homeowners that we actually work with, unfortunately, they buy a house and they really don't know kind of like their property restrictions and some of those things. We do try to help them. And there's many times that there's customers that are really disappointed where they can't fit a pool or they have some issues. So unfortunately, I think when people are actually going out and buying houses, they're just looking at the house and they're not looking at any of the area around the home itself. I would also say my son does the permitting for us as far as overall. And I have a copy. You guys, do you have copies of the permit itself? Or the site plan?
Is that the one that's labeled plot plan in the top right-hand
Yeah.
corner?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that maybe Zionsville or whoever, we don't necessarily, I want to be upfront, we don't necessarily know that the HOA covenants at all, as far as when we're submitting the information, all we're really looking for is, does the pool fit within the easement or any of the other restrictions that are actually listed here on the plot plan. So we historically don't, customers don't come to us with an HOA packet or something along those lines. For us, what we try to do with the homeowners, we actually try to get obviously the permit as far as within the Zionsville market or any of the markets. One suggestion that I would encourage you guys to prevent this going forward would be I'll use a neighboring community for you guys in Carmel. The way it works so every place that we build pools in today kind of positions it as to the permit is done within, like say Zionsville, the homeowner is then responsible for the HOA on their own. We encourage the homeowners obviously to get their HOA approval, but Carmel is the only one actually that when you apply for a Carmel permit, they won't actually issue us a permit until the HOA is actually approved. So one thing, if you want to think about a way to prevent this going forward, I'm just trying to think about it going forward. One of the measures that I would clearly recommend for you guys is enacting a process that we can submit the HOA or submit the permit to you. It sits there until you get the HOA approval from the board, and then you grant us the permit. That would be one way actually to solve this kind of a problem going forward.
Another process would be where you, serving your client, make sure that they obtain that information before you apply for a permit. Obtain a HOA letter and talk to your client before they apply for the permit.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Majestic, I got a quick question. So you've built some pools up in the Holiday Farms area.
Yes,
You've already built some pools up there?
yes.
So then the plot plan provided by True North, you've worked with these individuals before?
That was provided by the builder. That plot plan.
Did you use this plot plan to acquire a permit?
Yep.
Are you used to looking and working with this document then, regardless who provided it?
Yeah, but I don't know why there's not a 25-foot rear on the plot plan. Why wouldn't you guys?
It
look at
states it on the plot plan.
I understand that, but why wouldn't you guys, before you approve it, look at that 25?
Wait a minute, no. My question is about your operation, not ours.
Yeah.
You just stated a few minutes ago how you work and help and blah, blah, blah. Why did you not pick it up?
Yeah. I don't know how we missed it, to be honest. No different than how Zionsville missed it as well. So I,
Wait a minute,
no,
but you are the expert at putting in pools, not our staff.
I would say, we're an expert as far as in building pools. And I wouldn't say that we're an expert in getting things approved as far as for the permits. I mean, I think we work with them on a
Okay.
very regular basis, but I wouldn't say we're an expert in it.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, let's, we also haven't asked, are there any online
Oh,
demonstrators?
sorry, my bad.
In the staff report, have we had the
And the
staff?
staff report as well, yeah.
I'd still like to go ahead and make a motion now though, but if we want to do all that, that's fine.
I just wanted to make some comments based on Mr. Weber's testament. He had mentioned that the property value concern, we actually have 3 references that show that property value increases with pools by on average 8%. So we have that with us if you need to see it. Landscaping does get approved. I don't think that anything that we were planning for landscaping would obstruct their view. Their setup for their lot is very different than ours as far as the land that goes behind the property line. So where the cart path goes directly behind their lot, the cart path is way further behind by, we have pictures of what that looks like. And I also just want to make a comment about the,
Okay, thank you. All right.
I just want to make a comment about him speaking on behalf of conversations that he wasn't involved in. And just to kind of see that as not being appropriate. Also, the accusations of defamation of character is not appreciated either, and really not appropriate in this forum. And also wanted to say, it's confusing to me why someone would say we're trying to pull one over and rush something in when this is not a situation that we want to be in. We're both professionals with very stressful jobs. We really don't need the extra stress. We just want to have a nice house in a great place with a nice pool from where we were trying to plan on. So, thank you.
And I'll add, and thank you for being here. You know, we look forward to being good neighbors. But I was, all the information that was submitted is online, right, on the site. And for Brad to say, and yet he lies to perma pools and says he got approval to falsely apply for the permit, that is an attack on me. I didn't lie to anyone. These guys can attest to that. I didn't apply for the permit. I did not lie to them. This has been in place for a long time. These guys applied for the permit, and for him to come at me and send this into you guys to say that I lied to perma pools to get an approval, a false permit I take a big offense to that because it's an attack on my character. So I do not appreciate that, first off. Second, in regards to the pool itself, one more thing. I spoke with, when all this started coming to a head, I spoke with Mike Lathrop. I said, Mike, what is going on? I said, now we're being told by the ARB that this is not approved. You guys, the city approved this gave us a building permit. They've started to build. I said, if we stop building now and talking to these guys, the point where we're at, we're 85% done, we risk compromising the concrete floor and everything else move forward. And Mike said to me, he said, I am not putting a stop build on the pool. You guys continue to build. Verbatim on the phone. So we continue to build at that direction. So the ARB stuff aside, that's one thing. But when we got a direct directive from Mike to say, I'm not putting stop build on the pool. You guys can continue to build. We continue to build. So everyone thinks we're trying to pull a quick one here and just push this thing through. That's not the case. So it's frustrating for me. I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up. I'm like this all the time. I'm just frustrated with the process. And all we're looking for is a variance on this. So then we can go to the ARB and try to get this thing approved. That's all we're asking for.
Mr. Godbout, I don't think that any of us believe you're trying to pull a fast one. And I don't think anyone has said anything which that was the basis for what they said. So I understand frustration, but I don't think that you have anyone here that's believing you're trying to pull something over.
And I'd like to point out one other thing in regards to the letter that was sent for the couple that's not here. If you stand in my pool and look at the brick wall and the patio that they built in the back of their house, it stretches further into that back setback than our pool does. So I don't know if they got a variance. I don't know how that was approved by the ARB, but there's truly a setback there we're trying to follow here. If you stand in my pool and look at their big rock wall, I got a picture of it. It is well into the setback.
You could speak into the microphone, please, so there's transcripts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, like I was saying, our neighbor who the letter says they're being asked to do this. So someone is asking them to do this letter. So I don't know if they're really that interested or not, but someone has asked them to put this letter together. So I would hope that was approved or there was some sort of variance granted to that, but that whole back patio is well into that setback. And like I said, I'm hoping there's a variance there or that it was approved by the ARB because, they're in reading the description of a pool, deck, patio, whatever, they all kind of fit in the same category as far as what needs to be in that setback. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you wishing to respond, Mr. Weber?
If I could just make one quick comment.
All right.
I know you're running over time. I would just like to apologize to Matt for my poor choice of words when I said that he was lying to get the permit. I should have used a more appropriate phrase such as was inappropriately approved. And for that, I apologize.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who wishes to say anything about this petition? No. Okay. In fairness, I think we should have the staff report.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to run through this since this isn't a typical request, kind of the history of it here. A lot of it was kind of touched on in pieces, but I want to get the clear overview here. The permit was approved, the pool permit was approved, or I'm sorry, was issued on July 18th of this year with the 16-foot setback, which is all provided in your packet as an exhibit. Obviously, based on the plot plan, it wasn't clearly indicated what that rear setback was. And that's kind of probably where the error in approval came from, was not having the clearly indicated line of the rear setback. So after the pool permit was issued, and I'm assuming construction had begun, our department was notified of the issue at hand, what's the setback. So after research, we went back. We realized that the pool was got approved for 16 feet, but the setback really is 25 feet. So Perma Pools and the owner were notified of this issue, and were told to request for a variance retroactively from you all. and also recommended to proceed with getting HOA approval. And just to reiterate that our department does not require HOA approval when permitting, as we don't enforce the covenants and restrictions. So given all that, one more point, the setbacks are shown on the plat. I don't know if they're in the covenants or what, but the rear setbacks are indicated on the plat. So given all the information stated above, the mistake on the town's end, the pool not encroaching towards existing residential lots, but towards the golf course, and how the town traditionally looks at accessory structures in different zoning districts. Typically, we allow for encroachment of accessory structures such as pools into rear setbacks. So with all that said, staff is favorable of the variance request and happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff?
When you
Is
say we
Mike-
do, go ahead, Chris, go ahead.
I was gonna say, has Mike Lathrop verified how close to the property line the pool is? Because it sounds like even the 16-foot variance won't accommodate the pool in its current condition.
From what I understand, we have not verified. I don't know if we typically measure off that, but from what I understand, it's 16 feet from what the plot plan that's been provided to us shows. But I'm not aware of anybody on our department verifying that.
And if we approve 16 foot and Mike goes out there and it's less than 16 foot, we're gonna see this petitioner again.
That's correct.
Okay. So
It does look like, when you look at that plot, the rear portion of the accessory there is not parallel with the property line. So you can't tell from this drawing, I can't tell anyhow, if it's 16 feet at one end and 12 at another or not.
But
they're
that
not
is
there.
pertinent to the issue at hand. And so to even request everything's been done wrong to this point, and then to request a petition that doesn't even solve the problem is another indicator that somebody's not paying enough attention to this and not doing their job. And they're asking us to make their lack of doing their job right. And I have a problem with that.
I agree.
I have a quick question. You say we do on occasion grant variances encroaching into rear setback. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I'm sorry, let me clarify. I think my point was in different zoning districts, we allow, I'm just gonna give an example here, a pool, let's say in the village. We allow accessory structures, what would include pools, to go 5 feet from rear setback, when the principal building can't be more than 20 feet.
Okay.
So with Holiday Farms is a little bit different, is they have one setback for all structures, whether it's an accessory structure or it's part of the principal building. I think that was the point I was trying to make.
All right. And then, and if we were granting a variance for a rear setback in an area that had a HOA or architectural review board, would those organizations still have to sign off on our variance? The other item is, as I went through the, and this is after we get through this, there's something I'd like to bring up, part of the new business, but specifically to this development, going through that, there's 10 subsections laid out in here. So in other words, and it took me a while to even figure it out. As you're going through the plats, each plat has like a little octagon, and maybe it's colored in, or maybe it's got a line through it, or there's a star, or it took a while to figure out what the heck I was looking at. And that's basically the way they cross-reference back to this ledger that they put on here. One of the more interesting things about this ledger is it also calls out that there's certain lots that enjoy a 10-foot rear setback. My motion, even though I'm not making a motion at this time, but if I were to make a motion, it's still going to be along the lines initially of a continuance to allow Hinkie, if they so see fit, to find a way to make a equitable solution, not only for these individuals, but the adjoining property owners. And we wouldn't be here granting a variance. And I think that's well within their rights to review and adjust their multiple subsections. Once again, if I understand the way it is set up, currently they are the only vote when it comes to the HOA and the ARB at Holiday Farm. So it's entirely within their jurisdiction to make a correction that they could then approve this through their ARB, and it wouldn't even be in front of us. Am I out of bounds with what I'm throwing out?
Right, because the standard.
Right, I'm out of bounds.
Not out of bounds, but the standard here is 25 feet, and we can't defer that decision to the Architectural Review Board. The town still has to grant that setback. So even if the Architectural Review Board were to grant something less than 25 feet, it doesn't absolve town from having to also approve that.
And that's
So the town would
because
then
it's
have
in
to
the
adjust.
PUD. It's because
Yeah.
the setback is part of the PUD.
Right, yes.
That's why. It's also part of the covenants potentially, but it's part of the PUD, which is why we have to approve it as well.
Which is one of the pieces I was going to go back and check to see, did we actually approve this as part of the original PUD?
Setbacks were.
Were they? This schedule was all part of this? Okay. I just, like I said,
So it seems to me that part of the issue is sequencing here, and I think Mr. Majestic had a really good point about having the HOA clearance first before anybody applies to the town to get a building permit on a pool, particularly if there's some question about setbacks and so on. So it seems to me that perhaps the best strategy, and you can tell me if I'm out of bounds, would be for petitioner to go back to the HOA or the ARB, get whatever approval or make whatever arrangements they can make. And then if they do need a variance, come back and get a variance. I think we're out of phase here. I think we're not in the right place in the process. It's my view. So.
I think that if nothing else, that's one thing that's been pointed out here is that this should not happen again. We should have a system that avoids this. So.
Right.
and this goes back to legal and Mike, you guys down there. So once a subdivision or a PUD is created and we approve it, I guess we can still go back and grant variances that change it. Because we are kind of a semi-judicial body.
Correct. The PUD just lets them set their own standards rather than the standards normally in your zoning ordinance. They set their own through the PUD. If they then want to vary from those, it's the same process.
So if we would to grant this variance, they would not require the approval of the ARB. Of
Oh, they still would.
They still would.
Yes.
And if the ARB doesn't grant it,
It takes both. This is one of those situations where it takes both.
Oh.
So you can approve it, but without the ARB, they still can't proceed.
you just said we can override them.
No. You can grant variances to what your town ordinance says. The PUD is an ordinance of the town. We can grant variances to. The covenants restrictions internally, we can't. And I think that's what Mr. Lake was alluding to.
Correct.
I'll still make a motion. Is that okay?
Were there no questions of staff? You cleared any questions of staff? Seeing none,
I move the docket 2022-57-DSV for the property at 10703 Barrington Way, Zionsville, Indiana, 46077, be continued until the petitioner can acquire the approval of the Architectural Review Board for the Holiday Farms development.
Thank
From
you,
the
Mr.
Holiday Farms
Jones.
development.
Is there a second?
Second.
Were there 2 seconds? Thank you, Mrs. Postawait. Was that an echo or was that Mr. Lake?
No, that was me.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion among the board? The motion is that docket 2022-57-DSV be continued to the December meeting or until the matter is heard by and decided upon by the Architectural Review Board for Holiday Farms. Any additional discussion? We do a roll call vote, please.
Yes. Ms. Postlethwaite?
Quick question. I'd like to make sure I amend my motion for the language that Steve said.
I thought I got it pretty close, but maybe
No,
not.
Nope.
Steve, you added or the December meeting.
Oh, no.
Well, I said December or
Yeah,
until.
Steve added decided upon.
Hmm.
I said approval.
yes.
So I'd rather go with his decided upon language. Modify my motion. Should I try to restate my motion? You can ask me to remember that.
Yeah. Why don't we, for the sake of the person who's going to have to put this in the minutes, let's have a clean motion.
All right.
So if you would restate it.
I
Mr.
move
Jones.
that docket 2022-57-DSV for the property located at 10703 Barrington Way, Zionsville, Indiana, be continued until the Holiday Farms Architectural Review Board has the opportunity to act on, to decide upon the requested variance.
Right. The motion has been restated by Mr. Jones. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Pakel. Let's do a roll call vote, if we would, please,
Yes.
Mike.
Okay. Ms. Postlethwaite?
Aye.
Mr. Pickell?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye,
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
All approved.
thank you. The motion is continued. It will require the action of the Holiday Farms Architectural Review Board. Once that is done, then this body would review that on a next docket whenever that occurs.
So you're not declining the variance.
If you'd like to,
You're not declining the variance. You're now making this one big issue and you're putting it back on the.
we are continuing a vote on that decision on whether to deny or approve that variance.
Essentially, you're saying if ARB agrees, you guys mostly likely will grant the variance.
Well, we didn't say that, but what we said was we would, once that conclusion is reached by the ARB, then we would hear the motion, hear the petition.
Okay.
Knowing that.
And I would also request that you verify your actual setback that you need and that it match what was requested. We don't want to hear this twice.
Gotcha. Thanks, man.
No,
Well, no, he's saying we got to verify the 16.
he is suggesting that given what we heard tonight, that in your best interest, you'll want to make certain that what you are requesting is sufficient.
Correct. I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good enough.
Yeah.
But thanks for your patience. I know that your personal integrity might have been hurt here. It was no intent by anyone on the board to do that. That was not our intent. Our intent is to make certain that we're doing what this board is supposed to do. So,
And I want you guys to understand that there was no intent on our part to put this pool in it and shove it down everyone's throat and get it done. That we thought we were going by we thought we were going through the right process, and when we were granted that building permit from the town, we thought we had the green light. And then again, when I called and he said, continue to build, we're not putting stop building on it, I thought we were okay. So that's why we continue to go with it. So there's just a lot of balls that have been dropped here, and we're stuck in the middle of it. And now we're, we've sunk a lot of money into this thing that these guys put in, and now we're trying to figure out how to resolve it. And it just sucks for us because we've been put in a spot that we shouldn't be in.
Yeah, understand.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda is docket number 2022-59-DSV. S. McKenna, 1085 Starkey Road in Zionsville, Indiana. It's a petition for a development standard variance to provide for an addition to a single-family dwelling, which 1, exceeds the allowable lot coverage, 2, deviates from the required 50-foot side yard setback, 3, memorializes the establishment of an existing 1-acre lot where a minimum lot size is 5 acres. 2, memorializes the establishment of an existing lot width where the minimum lot width is 250 feet. And 5, memorializes the establishment of an existing lot frontage. Minimum lot frontage is 250 feet in the urban open land zoning district O-1. Mr. Andreoli, are you going to tackle this?
Yes, Mr. President, for the record, Mike Andreoli, 1393 West Oak Street. I represent Shannon and Sarah McKenna. They own the property at 1085 Starkey Road. It's a 1-acre tract. They currently have a house that's been existing there for a number of years. They actually purchased the house from former clients of mine and have lived there now for several years. And in essence, they're going through a large remodeling project interiorly and exteriorly on the home itself. And we appreciate the efforts in working with Suzanne and working through some of the unusual parts of this particular variance request, given the fact that we have a zoning classification for this parcel that we generally don't deal with very often in Zionsville. In fact, it's my first opportunity to deal with the O1 open essentially land zoning classification that actually has something on it, as this one does. So essentially, what they're seeking to do is they have in the remodeling project, they're going to add on slightly to the structure itself. They're going to have a 196-foot addition to the house. In addition, proposed addition of 515 square feet. Then they're going to have a porch of 235 square feet off the back. Interestingly enough, none of the additions to the house are any closer to the lot line than the current house is itself. So we're not seeking to expand outside the boundary of the house and make these additions or the remodeling any closer to the actual lot lines than the existing house that predates this particular project, which I think is significant. They understood, and just to give you a little history, they understood in talking to the prior owners that a variance had been granted for the actual garage in terms of its relationship with the lot line, but I don't think we could really find any past variances that were granted. It may be that they were confused or the prior owner was confused that he had a different zoning classification back when it was done, which in essence was the case. And so in order for them to move forward with this particular project, they have to get the number of variances as if they were starting over. Regardless of what the project is, because they're a legal non-conforming use. And if they're going to be making any changes to the structural footprint of the house at all, it requires to go back and get the approved variances. In essence, I think staff report does an excellent job of covering the details and the specifics of this. There are 5 specific variances. We have findings of fact for each one of those. And we will encourage your adoption and happy to answer any questions about it. I know that I think the McKennas have already moved out in anticipation of they had to find another place in anticipation of getting this approved so they can get started out there. But of course, it's subject to your approval. It's subject to your good graces in terms of moving forward. But that's where we are in the process. Be happy to answer any questions. As I said, I think the staff did a really good job working with us and working through the issues with regard to this to make sure that every variance that was needed is picked up in our request, so we're not going to need any more. The other thing I toyed with was, since this is such an unusual zoning classification, maybe going in and rezoning it to a more traditional residential classification that doesn't have some of these unusual provisions. When I talked to my clients about that, they indicated that they were not going to have any plans for any future expansion or structures on the property other than what's there now. It's a 1 acre parcel. Whatever they're going to do now is they're going to keep, and not going to have anything else. So we decided perhaps the variance route was a better route to go than try to do a rezoning of that property and have to talk to people why we're rezoning it and this, that, and the other. So not the most favored way generally to approach it. So that's at least a little of our reasoning as to why we took the variance route, as opposed to try to just rezone it into a classification of all the properties that are generally around it, which are much more dense classifications, by the way. Some RSF3 classifications and those types of things. You have sugar bush right next to it, and some other classifications along there. So be happy to answer any questions. I know it's been a long evening. This is not in a subdivision, and we do not have an HOA.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner's representative? I think there are only 3 other lots perhaps that are in that same zoning class, which would have the same issue with the rezone.
Well, she does own the lot immediately to the northeast of this particular parcel. So this is not the only tract that the McCannas own, but there's an older house on that property, and I think her mom lives on that. And there's no plans to do anything with that or remodel that or anything like that. So we just really wanted to stick with the approvals for the remodel that they're doing on this, and not try to morph this into something bigger than really what it is at the time. So that's our thought process.
Hearing no indication of question. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? Anyone online? No. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes. I think Mr. Andreoli did a good job summarizing the request. There's quite a few memorializations here. In, I think, early 2000, this property was previously zoned RV, and through an ordinance amendment, the new zoning classification made it urban open land, which created a lot of legal nonconformities and non-compliant issues, such as the acreage. It's 1 acre. The minimum size is 5 acres. The lot frontage is in width is 250 feet, and this existing lot's 135 feet. The side setbacks are 50 feet, and the additions aren't encroaching any additional that's what's already on the property with the residents. Really, the only thing that's changing is the lot coverage, which is going to 19% when the maximum is 10%. So with all that, those 5 requests, staff is in favor of all the requests. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none. Is there a motion, a number of motions?
Chair, I'm going to go. Variance number 1, I move the docket 2022-59-DSV Development Standard Variance to provide for an increase in lot coverage up to 19% for the construction of a residential addition for the property located at 1085 Starkey Road in the Urban Open Land Zoning District 01. Be approved as presented and described based on the findings of the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pakel. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, I move the docket 2022-59 DSV development standard variance to provide for the deviation of the side yard setbacks of less than 50 feet for the construction of residential additions for the property located at 1085 Starkey Road in the urban open land zoning district 01B, approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlethwaite. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I move the docket 2022-59 DSV development standard variance to provide for the establishment memorialize a 1 acre lot, which results in a deviation from the required minimum 5 acre lot size for the property located at 1085 Starkey Road in the urban open land zoning district 01B, approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report, the staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlethwaite. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I move the docket 2022-59 DSV development standard variance to provide for the establishment to memorialize the existing lot width, which results in a deviation from the required minimum 250 feet lot width for the property located at 1085 Starkey Road in the urban open land zoning district 01B, approved as presented and described based on the submitted findings of the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved.
I move the docket 2022-59 DSV development standard variance to provide for the establishment to memorialize the existing lot frontage, which results in a deviation from the required minimum 250 feet of lot frontage for the property located at 1085 Starkey Road in the urban open land zoning district 01B, approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Paquel. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Andrioli. That wraps up the agenda. Mr. Jones, you had mentioned you had.
Yeah, maybe there's actually two.
Thank you.
Good night.
One is, do we want to maybe have a special session or discuss the concept of having architectural review board or HOA signed approval as being part of obtaining a permit? I know, the village has talked about a historic covenant district, blah, blah, blah. I'm used to working in downtown Indianapolis and historic districts where you have to get a COA to do it. And those are required to go get your building permit. The COA is a certificate of appropriateness, can be sometimes handled at a staff level, or sometimes I have to go in front of the Historic Preservation Commission, but it's a document that needs to be approved, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, what I'm saying is maybe we need to change the way we do this, because that would have killed a lot of tonight's discussion. The second issue is.
Before you go further, I don't know, Mike, I guess maybe having staff voice any suggestions to alter what you've said or question further for the sake of, because I think this is something that goes back to your group, and we would need to formulate something to put this in motion. But I think we've seen the value of doing something different than the way we do it now.
Okay, the town can establish its submittal requirements for a variance. But I would like to consult with our legal counsel and make sure there's no obstacle to adding that as a submittal requirement.
Well, and I think the goal would be to see this family that is literally caught in the middle of this really unpleasant situation. And if anything that would ameliorate possibility of that happening again would be important, I think.
Okay. The second thing is maybe have some sort of discussion with is in relation to just PUDs, planned urban developments. Specifically with this pool issue, was kind of interesting to me to go through and find out there were 10 subsections to their residential lots. And then, and once again, I'm a person used to looking at this stuff, and then I'm having to think what this is. And I don't know if it's that kind of thing in the process of developing a PUD actually gets this, does it get in front of the staff to a level that they know it, see it, know it's coming, know it's out there? Does that make any sense? The second part of that is and what I'm grinding away at is trying to set up a scenario where, as we get more and more of these PUD requests, we do kind of a separate from these, plan commission, where the group can kind of talk about it with staff. I understand there's certain regulations regarding the number of people we can have get together, because on the other side of that, I'm hearing feedback that there's existing PUDs that we've approved years ago that are now via the town or some other source having additional requirements made of them. And these are things, this is a planned urban development, that was done and signed off, and people have been working, trying to bring it to fruition. And now they're back and they're getting asked for changes. And in my book, no, the town granted the PUD and the ordinance and everything in it. And if they're working to comply with that, we don't have any right to ask for any changes of it. But I hear it's going out there. And so that's why I'm trying to make sure to get commission, BZA staff, somehow people, and then as things come ahead of it, I don't know, hence that's what I'm saying. I personally, as we looked at this issue, was caught off guard that there was 10 subsections to the residential lots. And then the way that information is conveyed, and it wasn't until I'm sitting up here actually studying the damn plot plan to figure out that it says at the bottom what the setbacks are. So clearly they were kind of in the wrong. But clearly our staff was kind of in the wrong because it's kind of right there.
Missed it.
Yeah, we missed it. They missed it.
Yep.
The pool guy missed it.
Yep.
They didn't, and that's why it's like tightening that piece up. And then, like I said, on the other side, and then, like I said, with, once again, Holiday Farms, I keep beating up on them, but one of the boxes that got clicked was the multifamily on the north end of it. Yet, if you read through all the verbiage, well, we were supposed to have an amusement park up there. I don't know what it was supposed to be, but it wasn't supposed to be apartments. But we did approve it. The property is entitled for that use. And I don't think anybody on the BZA or the Plan Commission, when that was coming through, really, that wasn't the vision we were seeing for it. It's entitled to be that, but it wasn't. And that's what I'm trying to say about getting our path kind of cleaned up a little bit. Does that make any sense to my ramblings?
I would just add, and this is probably a perfect world sort of scenario that, where I'm dwelling at the moment. But in a perfect world, homeowners would have their covenants given to them at the time they purchase a lot and written in a way that is understandable for the average person who is not a specialist in zoning and ordinances and so on. Because I think that part of, and listening to this gentleman who is still with us, talking about understanding and having been given a copy of the covenants to understand what the rules and regulations are going to be going forward would be. And I don't know whether the town says that to developers, whether the town encourages developers to make those things available. I don't know.
So my understanding is that's the responsibility of the title company at closing to provide those documents to the homeowner. So I think that's where the failure occurred. What gets me though is that the homeowner got notice from the architectural review board that the pool wasn't approved, but he just continued on with construction. That's what got me.
Yeah. Larry and I live in the same development, and I did get a book of all the covenants and restrictions. It did come from the title company, and I got that once I purchased a lot. I didn't know how it happens in every instance, but I know that that's how it happened when I bought a lot here.
Yeah, prior to this meeting, I pulled out my old approved site plan for the house, and it had a little red check mark on the setbacks on either side. The playground in the back had been circled, keep it out of the easement. So it got reviewed and there was notes on it. And it was pretty clear I had to go through that process. But for getting the building permit, no, nobody needed it. It wasn't required.
When I bought my house, the title company made sure I checked, there was a check mark that I had read the covenants. No, I didn't read the covenants, but I had to check that I did.
But you checked that you did. Yeah.
And also that there's a difference between having read the covenants versus just knowing that there's an architectural review board.
Right.
I mean, most people in their neighborhood know whether there's an HOA or an architecture, or whether they've read the covenants or not.
Right. And what the process is, if you're going to do anything
Yes.
to your property that needs to go through this process.
I'd say that when I got that book, first of all I had was a piece of ground, didn't even have a plan for a house.
Yeah.
And I could not have told you that there was a review board. I would have had no idea.
Well, you got in early, Steve. I think it was still just Renwick and Renwick only, wasn't there?
Brentwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't Brentwood when you?
Yeah, it was Renwick.
Okay.
And they had a fairly stiff review. And Chris, you want to get out of here? Or should we call the meeting?
I do.
Yes.
I'd move to adjourn.
There you go.
Chit chat, aren't you?
Chris, you've got some things you'll need to sign when you get back in next time.
That's fine.
Enjoy.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep, no problem.
I hope you're someplace that's
No.
nice and warm.
made a motion to adjourn.
Oh, no.
All right, your motion was accepted. Thank you for that. It was seconded by Larry Jones and Kathy Postaway.
We're walking out the door.
And they're walking out the door. The meeting is adjourned.
Stay well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.